social cohesion? How important is in your view and how you would define it?
I think I've been talking a lot about social cohesion so far, the fact that we need to be open. Social cohesion is very important. And I think having, podcasts like this is actually really quite cool. Having ethnic voices on radio. I think the work that the Ministry of Ethnic Community does is absolutely needed in this country, and I support the Ministry of Ethnic Communities 100%. I wouldn't want anyone to speculate whatever somebody else says. Hear it from me. Ministry of Ethnic Communities is actually not going away.
And my very special guest here today is just a pleasure for us to have and welcome Honourable Minister Melissa Lee. Minister, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for the invitation to Voice of Aotearoa.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure for us. I would love to have a little bit corridor with you about the leadership and also about the Ministry of Ethnic Communities and all of that. So I want to start with you about how do you see Wellington?
Wellington is a place that I come for work. I travel here virtually every week. And, a lot of people say that I've been a member for quite some time and they think I know Wellington very well. But what they don't realize is that when members come to Wellington, members of parliament come to Wellington, they literally go from the airport to work and then very late at night go to their accommodation. Early in the morning, they go to work, accommodation, and then they literally, when they finish on a Thursday evening, they literally fly out. So I don't really get to see much of Wellington.
Oh,
that's such a real shame, isn't it? Yeah, I don't get to see very much of it. But what I've actually seen of Wellington, it's a really pretty town. And I think it's more walkable than Auckland, for example. I'm from Auckland. And I see so many people walking around in Wellington. I think, people get fitter in Wellington probably.
Right. We have amazing also, places to go for a long walk and nice places. So
yeah, not having a lot of time for long walks in Wellington, with Parliament's busy schedule. But maybe one day I'll actually come back for a long walk. Yeah,
that's great. Awesome. So, Mr. would love to... we try to introduce the people to the audience, but you have amazing portfolio through all the things you have done. I would love to, let's say, ask you this question. How you would love to introduce yourself?
I think I would introduce myself firstly as Melissa Lee. I'm a Korean-born New Zealander who came to New Zealand without much of a choice because my parents moved us out of Korea when I was a child in primary school. And I had amazing background, traveling to Malaysia, growing up in Malaysia, speaking multiple languages, and then moving to Australia to finish high school and going to university. And then around that time, my parents decided to check out Australia to see if they wanted to migrate there and actually become Aussies. And they came for a visit while my brother and I were studying there, and they hated it. And they accidentally happened to come to New Zealand for a holiday to visit some friends who were here. And they traveled around New Zealand and absolutely fell in love with New Zealand. And so my brother and I got instruction, you are moving to New Zealand, no arguments, no nothing, you are moving. So that's how it actually happened. So we moved here in 1988 and became residents, and soon after we became citizens of New Zealand. I've been in New Zealand 36 years. I think I've just made myself sound really, really old now. 36 years, and I can't think of anywhere else that I'd rather live than in New Zealand.
Amazing, beautiful. And so in that one, the other question will be like, what inspired you to enter into the world of politics?
Politics has always been something very fascinating to me. If I go right back to my childhood, I campaigned to become class president. I was the youngest child in my class. I was the shortest child in my class. And I think, but then I grew up with a very strong mother who actually, challenged me, that if somebody says you can't do it, don't accept it. Girls can do anything. And I think, when there was an opportunity to, go for the presidency, because Korea is actually quite political, even in primary school, I challenged myself to actually become class president, and I became class president in year 1. And I became class president in year 2. It happened. And then I think, politics has always fascinated me. And I think, when I was in primary school, sometimes teachers asked really silly question like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Most of my friends said things like they wanted to be doctors, they wanted to be, firemen, they want to be nurses, teachers, and then, me being the shortest kid and, the youngest kid decided in my very loud voice, I actually announced to my class that I wanted to be the first female president of South Korea. I was very loud. And I think, I remember boys basically saying, yeah, girls can't be president. And I think one specific one like, even shoved me, I think. And I have to say that I probably got into a fight with him at the end of the school day.
Hope now they will see your name or see you, how you are doing in New Zealand.
I think after all these years, he and I are still friends.
Oh, okay.
We became friends. Yeah.
Great. So, Minister, you see your passion. How do you define leadership for you?
Leadership is very difficult for me in the sense that because often I don't actually see myself as the leader that that I admire. Leaders actually have charisma, they have passion, they have vision, and often I think it's probably true for most of us that we sort of are a bit self-conscious. You sort of don't actually rise up. Don't put your head above the parapet. Often people are worried about the tall poppy syndrome, and I think I've actually had that for a long time as well. But I think leadership, for some, it comes really, really naturally. For others, I think I'm one of those others. I try really hard to, be the kind of mentor that I can actually be for people. A lot of people see me as someone who's actually very vocal and articulate for the needs of the ethnic communities. And I did that when I was doing my television program for a very long time. I was one of the first Asian television presenters in New Zealand. I worked for TV1. On television program called Asia Down Under. I also own the production company that made the television program. I hired a lot of young Asian journalists or trained them up and who basically got scouted by other media companies who actually wanted ready-made journos from the Asian community because they were looking for diversity in terms of views. And I'm very proud of the work. And I didn't naturally sort of think of it thinking, oh, I'm a leader in this sector. I just tried my very best, and I just tried to do what I needed to do. And I think and I think one of the things that I value is that people, especially young people, when they see me and see my experience and see the kind of things that I have actually done, that I hope that they actually become inspired to be the leaders that they can be. It does take work.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, that's a beautiful choreo. Thank you. And that's what we're doing in this voiceofaroha. We have a lot of young people who are trying to join and do podcasts, building their confidence, in this role, which it can lead to other areas as well, not necessarily be in the media sector, but confidence to get a job, talking to someone else when they interview them. So thank you for that, Minister. I have a question now to come back to your portfolio right now, which you have a big portfolio of ministries, but how many ministries you run now?
I am the Minister for Economic Development. Through that, I am the Ownership Minister for MB. I am also the Minister for Ethnic Communities, and I'm Associate Minister for ACC.
Amazing. Great. So we will start with the focus on the Minister of Ethnic Communities. I want to ask you a question. It's what's your vision for it?
I guess as a minister, I want the ethnic communities to feel like they belong in this country. I don't want anyone coming to this country feeling like they're an outsider. I don't think anyone, whether they are migrants who actually come here or refugees who actually come here, anyone who actually comes to New Zealand thinking that I wanted to be an outsider. So I think New Zealand needs to be more welcoming so that all of the people who come to New Zealand can actually settle in New Zealand and belong in this country, have the same rights, same opportunities. And that is my vision for our ethnic communities. And Ministry of Ethnic Communities provide that opportunity to do the work. And, one of the things that I value is that ethnic voices are actually heard. And I think having, podcasts like this is actually really quite cool. Having ethnic voices on radio, on the internet. Media consumption is actually changing. Now anyone who has internet connection can actually have, news from around the world from their birth countries. But I think having specific New Zealand perspective is actually a very important thing. And I think, having the voice and those voices being heard where decisions are being made in Parliament, in government is really, really important. And through that, I think Ministry of Ethnic Community has a very important role because they are the chief advisor to government on diversity and ethnic community issues.
Great, absolutely. And that's the other things, Minister, we really thank you for allowing to do this podcast, because there's a lot of people have asked us about what will be the new vision, what will be changed for the minister. We said, okay, we will bring the minister and we will ask her the question and find out their vision and the work they will be focusing on this term for them, because I think what you have mentioned, that's where people asking, they want to be feeling belonging and they want to see their voice be heard.
I think in terms of the vision, let me just elaborate a little bit. It's not just about belonging, because once they belong, they want to be able to achieve their dreams and aspirations. Ethnic communities are not just people who work for other people. We are also, entrepreneurs, we are business owners, we are actually, role models that we can be. And often, as I said earlier, it's, we sometimes don't want to put our head above the parapet because we're worried. We're migrants. There's racism. People actually judge us. We don't want that happening. I think we should actually push forward and be judged, because we should be confident enough to actually say that our voices and our visions and our attitudes and our opinions should matter. And it can provide so much more in the advancement of New Zealand. And that is the reason why, we are also, one of the most important thing is also data. We don't have data about ethnic communities, whether, Asian people, ethnic people are actually in business. What kind of, issues do they face in health? So later this year, I think Insights, I can't remember what it's called, Insights data. Ethnic indicators data. Ethnic indicators data is going to be released at the end, towards the end of the year, and that for the first time. And that's going to be very, very important. And that is something that I've always said to the Ministry of Ethnic Communities, that we need real data. And also with MB and Ministry of Ethnic Communities, they have actually got ethnic data. And working together to actually try and find synergies and collaboration to bring about aspirations, whether it's actually in business. And the other thing that I actually want to say is, the government has this vision of export double in 10 years, right? And I feel that ethnic communities can actually play a humongous role in that vision to do that, because not only do we have business acumen, but we also have connections back in our home countries. We have connections overseas. And I think, we speak many different languages. We have the skill sets. And we should be tapping into ethnic communities to make sure that they play an important role in some of these activities that government do.
Absolutely, I 100% agree with that. I mean, at least our member of our team, each one, if don't speak 3 or 4, they're all speaking more than 2 languages.
I used to speak 7. I'm showing off now.
Well, that's great.
I don't anymore though. I think I barely speak 2 languages, English and Korean. It's like with anything. For languages, I think if you don't speak it regularly, you forget, especially if it wasn't your mother tongue.
That's
my mother tongue's Korean. I learned how to speak Bahasa Malaysia before I spoke English. I spoke, Minahua, which is a Chinese dialect, before I spoke English. So, I learned different languages, but then, and then I picked up English when I was a teenager. And then after that, it's sort of like you don't use the other languages when you move to, to another country, and you sort of forget, which is a real shame.
That's right, yeah. So I'm afraid to lose my other 2. I'm trying time to time to, connect with my friends back home and talk to them to not forget it. But
Practice.
Yeah, and we have other community members coming here as a refugee program, like a Kurdish and Arabs. So they call me for translations, or I go help these communities. So that's helped me to not forget it at this stage.
Keep up the language, I say. I think it's really important.
Right. So I have other question. It's about like, how do you plan to make sure like there's a greater inclusion or representative of ethnic communities in the government policies and initiatives?
One of the things that I would love to encourage the ethnic communities is participation. And often I think, when people when there are events, and I'm talking about civic events, people should participate. If they're doing a survey, participate. If they're actually wanting opinions, participate. Because without your views, without actually participating and telling government, telling council, telling organizations that things are not right or things are great, how would they know? And I think these kinds of data sets are really, really important. People need to know that. It's like crime. How would people know that crime's happening if you don't report it? And then if you don't report it, you shouldn't be complaining, because, if police don't turn up, you don't have the right to actually complain if you don't report, because people need data. So participation in all of those civic activities, I think, is really, really important. And the other thing that I am encouraging the Ministry of Ethnic Communities is trying to encourage and seek more ethnic communities to participate in boards. Not only government boards, but also on business, commercial, private enterprise boards as well. Because I think their views, the diversity of views, diversity is actually very, very valuable, because not only do they actually bring their lived experience from overseas, but it's also their skill sets that are actually quite different sometimes to what New Zealand actually has. And I think there is a huge synergy in having somebody who has a different opinion. We shouldn't be scared of people's diversity in thought or anything. Whether it's opinion or lived experience, all of those things actually bring value, because together we can become better rather than be afraid of it.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Absolutely. So then, Mr. You mentioned something cool about participations into different things in the society, right? A lot of events or things happening.
Yeah, stand for local boards, stand for council, stand for parliament.
Yeah, that's awesome, great. Some people will be saying, which is some communities, it's a fact, they face some barriers. Someone asks, what support, what we should do here? If there's some community facing some barriers that providing from participation, it could be barriers, let's say, about get them into that level to understand the system, to participate, give feedback. What supports you think? What strategies will be there to do?
I think participating in the very basic sense is actually not something that people need. There shouldn't be a barrier. I think people initially probably are a little scared, and they're a little bit, worried about how people might think. I think they need to actually sort of cut that out. I know it might be a bit scary, but whether it's actually political. Let's talk about political participation. If you wanted to become a member of parliament, for example, you can't just decide that you want to be a politician, a member of parliament, and just start a campaign and become a parliamentarian. Right. Often it doesn't happen that way. One of the advice that I can give is that start ground level, and basically grassroots. You need people. Political parties require grassroots, activity, in the sense that we are all human beings. We are all mothers. We are all fathers. We are brothers, sisters. Grandparents or grandchildren, and we actually have real life experiences, and we bring our experiences to Parliament. I think that's really, really important. But we all started somewhere, and often it actually starts off with a membership to a political party. It doesn't matter what party. Hopefully, it's a national one. Hopefully, it's a national party. But for me, I started off with the National Party. And you contribute, you actually speak up, you actually give your opinions and why certain things are working, why certain things are not working. And I think you build courage, and you actually build your confidence, and you also learn how other people actually do it, so you can have mentors. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to actually ask for help, because if you don't ask, how would people know that you need help? I think that's always one of the things that I always say. Always, speak up. Say, hey, I need some help. Even if it's actually a mental health issue, it's very difficult to actually talk about. But if you don't ask for help, you don't know that there are people readily available to be on your side, to be your friend, to be actually able to help you. So I think, reach out.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's National Volunteer Week. They could volunteer in those kind of
Exactly. I would love more volunteers, actually.
Right.
All of us need volunteers, and all of us do volunteer. I mean, I volunteer too.
Yeah, that's a good start. Awesome. Thank you for that. Then this is a cool question here. Social cohesion. How important is, in your view, and how you would define it?
I think I've been talking a lot about social cohesion so far. The fact that we need to be open. Social cohesion is very important. I think when you look at the statistics and actually sort of think that, 1 in 3 Asian and Mila population have experienced racism. I think the statistics is actually perhaps a little too low, because I think virtually everyone would have experienced racism in this country. And it's not just New Zealand, it's all over the world.
Right.
And I think, New Zealand, I think for all of us, we actually need to learn how to respect one another and to be able to recognize and accept that people have differences. But we need to celebrate similarities, our shared vision, our shared hope and shared love for New Zealand. We come to New Zealand to become New Zealanders.
Yeah.
We may be hyphenated New Zealanders. I'm a Korean New Zealander,
Well, Middle Eastern.
Middle Eastern New Zealander, Indian New Zealander,
Right.
Japanese New Zealander, American New Zealander. We're all here. We're all migrants.
Right.
We come here. We didn't come here just because we just wanted to be American or Korean. We came here because we actually wanted to settle here, right? Some of us didn't have a choice, but still, I choose to stay here. And we become residents, we become citizens. We're Kiwis, and we need to respect that all of us are Kiwis. And social cohesion, I think when we work together and celebrate each other, respect each other, and understand that we also have differences and respect their differences, I think we become a better New Zealand.
I just love that. Yeah, I think we are different. There's no question about that. Each communities, each background have a differences. But I love if we treat it in respect, like we respect each other and celebrate the things we could celebrate together.
And I think that's why I think Ministry of Ethnic Communities does an amazing job. I mean, I host events in Parliament, whether it's actually Eid or Lunar New Year or Diwali. I don't just invite Indian people to an Indian event or Chinese people to Chinese event. I make sure that other ethnic communities are participating in those events. And, if you've been to one of those events, we actually open to other ethnic groups, because it's about celebrating together, so that we all understand differences and actually accept people's differences. And, having, like Ministry of Ethnic Communities have run 2 faith leaders huis.
Yes.
And I turned up to one in February where I thought it was really fantastic, because we had leaders from different faiths, coming together to talk about issues and how they, as leaders in the faith community, could potentially bring about and actually support that social cohesion work that the Ministry of Ethnic Communities is doing. I think it's really, really valuable work.
Absolutely. Awesome. I have another question for you, which is about ministry again. Some social some coalition partners who question it about the necessity of Ministry of Ethnic Communities. So if you could share any perspective that how important relevance is such a ministry, what's your be response to them?
Well, I think the work that the Ministry of Ethnic Community does is absolutely needed in this country. And I support the Ministry of Ethnic Communities 100%. I wouldn't want anyone to speculate whatever somebody else says. Hear it from me. Ministry of Ethnic Communities is actually not going away. I have no plans for a change. The reason why is because New Zealanders come from many different countries. We have a huge population who are ethnic. We have huge diversity in our ethnic communities.
Yeah.
And we still have issues in this country with social cohesion. We have ethnic communities who are aspirational, but their full potential hasn't been realized. And we need Ministry of Ethnic Communities to make sure that their voices, all of our ethnic voices, are heard at the highest level in government and policy development, because Ministry of Ethnic Communities is an advisor to the government, and they feed into the policy development, whether it's actually health, whether it's education, whether it's actually social development. They are consulted, just like I am. But one person, having a minister who's actually passionate is great, but we also need a ministry who can actually do the work.
Right. Awesome. I love this message. Strong, clear. And I love these commitments from you and from the national that is keeping this there. So just is good guarantee for all the ethnic communities listening and hearing this. This is clear and strong, loud as well. So Melissa, I'm coming to my last two questions. I'm aware about your time. What questions want to go with about advice? What advice you would give to our young people, youth who are listening to this podcast? Could be advice anything. So Mike,
Be
for you.
proud. Be proud of who you are. Because I think, I think when you're younger, you're really quite self-conscious. I have heard many migrant stories where, people have moved to different countries. They feel like they don't belong, so they actually try and be somebody else. I say be proud of who you are and be who you are. Because I think if you try and pretend that you're somebody else, you don't live your life. You're never going to be fulfilled, being somebody else. You need to be who you are. Be proud of the fact that you have culture. Be proud of the fact that you speak another language. Be proud of the fact that you had another culture and experiences overseas before coming to New Zealand, because you add to New Zealand. Your views are important. And don't be afraid, to talk to people. Don't be afraid that people judge you. It's not you they're judging. It's not you that is actually being judged. We should be turning around and actually judge those people who judge us. Often it's people's insecurities that actually bring about racism. It's people's ignorance that brings about racism. And, I know as a young person growing up, we want to be liked, and we don't like, being prejudiced or, have racism thrown at us. Don't be afraid. Talk to people. If you need to talk to people, there are plenty of people out there who can actually talk to you. I'm here. I want to hear your voices. If you're having difficulties, reach out, because I think it is really, really important. If you don't talk, nobody knows what you're going through. But be proud of who you are.
Awesome. Beautiful. So while you're still with us here today, I have last questions about World Refugee Day is coming approach to us this week. And what will be your message about World Refugee Day to our former refugee communities who are settling here in New Zealand?
Well, thank you for being who you are. And I think, you've taken a long journey to come to New Zealand, because I have met many refugee communities. I mean, I have some friends who were refugees from, Vietnam and Cambodia a long time ago as well. But, how they've actually come to New Zealand with nothing but the clothes on their backs. They had no friends, no language, and they have actually made New Zealand home. And I've actually heard their stories. And it is very, very courageous. And I think, we need to celebrate your life. And, I can't be at all of the Refugee Day events, but I will be turning up to the Refugee Day event in Parliament. Awesome. Tomorrow morning, I think it is.
That's right.
So I will be there. But, I just want to say thank you for being here, and we welcome you with our open hearts.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was amazing, lovely. I think this is end of our conversation. I know there will be a lot more things. Hopefully, future opportunities, we can talk about different topics in economics and other stuff.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
I just want to say it is an absolute privilege that I am the Minister for Ethnic Communities, because I feel like I'm your minister.
That's right.
And I think a lot of people have actually made me feel like I am their minister. And the love that I actually receive from a lot of the ethnic communities is such a privilege and such an honor. So thank you.
Thank you. And absolutely, you are our minister. And that's why we are really glad to have a chat closely with you and to the people who will be listening here. It's just, I love that how you've been flexible to accept our invitation and have this corridor. And again, thank you for everything you shared with us and the mahi you're doing. We would love to people who are listening in here to also be near to the ministry, to come, which is you hear from the minister that the doors is open, come along, ask the questions, reach out. So I hope that is what is our umbrella home. We can go there, then they can reach us, our voice to highest level of decision making. And Minister, we are also proud from you, your journey that you come, you're a role model for a lot of us to make this kind of passion building in our young people to follow the journey you're doing. So had a pleasure to have this conversation with you, and thank you to know you closely here. But I'm looking forward for future opportunities and the work the ministry is doing and the way we will support it, the way we will promote it with our communities in ways we can, which is one of them is by storytelling, by podcast, because people need to access the informations, right? And that's what we're trying to do. And again, we are proud of what you guys doing and keep doing. And thank you for your time and for coming here. This is the end of the show, but we have a tradition of season 5 of Voice of Roha we're running, which is to leave as a message for the next guest. But what we do, we have the previous guest, which you may not know who was it. He left a question for you. So let's see what were the questions. So, Mr. Here's the question from our previous guest. It says, if you would change one thing in the world, what would it be?
Wow, that's not enough choices. That's only one. If I could change one thing in the world, it's so difficult because there's so many things that I would like to change. No more war.
No more war.
I come from a country that is divided in half.
Yes.
Happened in 1950.
Yeah.
They're still at war.
Yes. That's right.
Do I need to write a question for somebody else?
Yes, that's your opportunity now. So you can write for the other one. So the last one we do, it's if you write the questions for someone else,